Hello and welcome to Two Girls in a Pod. I'm Sharon.
I'm Christy.
Oh my goodness, start of a new year.
Here we are again. Almost tax time. Everybody's fun thing.
She thinks tax time. Other people are thinking New Year's resolutions,
I know.
things like that. We don't do them. So
I'm thinking, I feel like I just finished taxes and it's ready to start again. Mm.
we can see everybody's priority for the new year. One of the things that's talking about priority for New Year, one of the things we were talking about was the mind body relationship
Yes.
and how so much of the time it is not a healthy relationship.
Exactly.
When we're talking about that, I think that we still are of this mindset. I think a lot of times, in that the mind does this piece and the body does this piece, and they do not intersect or something. I don't know. It's very weird to me.
Yeah, it's funny how there is that disconnect. We can either say, oh, focus on mental health, and then we also focus on the body like it was completely different, a separate thing.
Well, I think it's interesting because that just made me think about it. Like we're doing therapy with addiction. It's called a dual diagnosis. And people are often there, well, which do we fix first? The mental illness piece or the whatever the addiction is? Because the addiction will oftentimes have a physiological addiction. So there's a physiological reason for the addiction as well as a psychological addiction. And my thing is, why aren't you treating both at the same time? We act as if they're two different things.
Right.
It makes no sense to me, and it hasn't made sense to me. But
Well, I think people have not been paying attention to the body for a really long time. We just, are so up in our head. We just negate what's going on with the body, acting like it's not having any impact on how the brain functions.
or that the brain has an impact on how the body functions.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to me. And so, one of the things is I did this talk on Noom Vibe. The response, when we have these autoimmune diseases or we have these other things that are going on in our lives that we're starting to have a physiological response to. And, we are a country that is not a third world country. However, we die young here.
Mm,
This is insanity.
mhm.
But I think it is because we are not paying attention to that connection that our mind and our body are. This is all one. And as I told them, is I don't ever see anybody take their head off at night and put it to the side and do no,
Yeah.
but we continue to act this way. And what the motive is, don't care.
Mhm.
All I care about is the fact that we die way too young in this country
Yeah.
for what we have, all this medical technology. Oh, come on, look at our pharmaceutical and all this and that. But yet it's not prolonging life in the way that you think it would.
Right.
But I think it's because we're not putting in that piece. I think if we would teach people how to decrease their stress level, we would see a minimization in all of these illnesses that are
Mhm.
taking place.
Yeah. For sure. It's been proven there are many, many studies out there that show that stress has that impact on the body that you become unhealthy. And I think, it's that just the response of the body. It caves under that pressure.
Absolutely. Our immune system goes down if I'm constantly fighting what's going on in my head and I don't understand what's going on in my head. And sometimes the reason I don't understand what's going on in my head is because it's actually my body or vice versa.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Hmm. And I think a lot of times, like, especially this time of year, people will look at, like you say, New Year's resolutions and things like that. And they say, I'm going to get healthy and that. And it's about like maybe a weight loss or those kinds of things, which is important and can impact health. But understanding that connection is so important and realizing that if we were putting healthy food into our body, realizing its purpose of nourishment and fuel for the body, how much better our brain would function.
And, I think that's really an important thing. I was asked a question on Noon Vibe, and my response was, it was about around this. You need to decide, are you a Bugatti or are you a Pinto? Seriously,
What have I always told you?
that's her favorite car and that's what she wants.
Yes. And it's so I this I know that it sounds weird because, like, I see the perfection of that car, and when I think of, like, how the body runs in that, that's what I want. I want the Bugatti body. You know what I mean? I want the perfection that I see in that. I want that in me.
But that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Do you want the Bugatti body?
Yeah. And what are you gonna do to do that? And realizing that it's not just getting your butt off the couch. There are a lot of things that go into that.
And I think when you're looking at this thing and you're sitting there saying, "Oh my god, I gotta," if your New Year's resolution or whatever you wanna call it is, "I wanna lose weight." If you're doing that, but you're not looking at the mental piece of it, you've only addressed half of the issue here.
And that's usually why people end up back in those old patterns and stuff. They kind of set themselves up for failure when they're not doing the mental mindset piece that has to happen in order to maintain that.
Once again, I don't care if I change something, but if I'm not my mind is not matched to the decision and the choices that I'm making, you're right. We decrease the ability for its effectiveness over a longer period of time.
Yes.
And that's the thing. If you're going to be on a weight loss journey, then your mental piece better be incorporated. If you're on a journey of a business, your mental piece better be. If it's better relationships, your mental, these two should be going hand in hand with all of these things that we are doing. But that is not what we teach or promote. We
Yeah.
promote one or the other. No, it's a relationship and it better be a good relationship. I'm telling you, your best one.
Well, and you absolutely have to know your why. I mean, you can have amazing, noble goals and things like that, but you have to know your why in order to maintain the behavior that will take to get you to that. We were just recently reading a book. It's called As a Man Thinketh. I believe it's by James Allen.
Mm.
He was talking about the whole idea behind that and how that, like, he gave an example of like a person that is willing to go to the doctor, is willing to take prescriptions, all of those things, because they have the goal that, yes, I want to be better. But what are they doing in their daily lives to actually achieve that? And there is so much power that you can take back by saying, hey, I've got to change my eating habits. I've got to be more physically active or those things. But there's a lot of times you'll see situations like that where somebody's just, they're going to the doctor and they're taking the meds, but they're not willing to do all the other stuff.
Well, and the other thing is my mind has to be in alignment with these changes.
Yeah.
I have to be in a partnership with it. And this is a book that was not written yesterday,
This was back in the 1900s. It's a very short book, but really got
38 pages on Kindle.
Yeah. Well, it's been reformatted, so I guess it used to be 138, but but that was like old English, so it's been reformatted and just getting updated.
But it's a really good point that even back then, people were seeing this.
Yeah.
We're seeing these connections. We're seeing what we are doing. What is our active participation in our life?
Mhm.
And I think what happens is, and no disrespect to doctors, pharmaceuticals, anything like that. Everybody plays a role in this. But when I'm expecting something, another person or a medication to fix me, but I'm not invested in the outcome of it really, I want the outcome, but not the investment, so to speak.
Mhm. I think you can see that a lot of times with people who are diabetic. Like, there are some people that have this philosophy that I can eat whatever I want, I'll take the insulin. But what happens over time is they have to end up taking more and more because they're not doing the other stuff to keep it in check.
Oh, that is such a frustrating thing for some of my clients is to watch people that they love who won't eat correctly. It's like, oh, or we do this all the time. Guilty. The holiday comes and we say, oh, we're going to do this. Very guilty and suffered for it because I ended up having gluten. My sister made cookies that like my mom used to make. And I ate the cookie and I mean, it really did. The memory of it and everything was wonderful. She got the recipe right. It was great. I ate 4 of them, and then I suffered for 4 days.
Yeah.
I think I'm still suffering. But once again, and then I sit back and say, "Now is that worth it?" And, my vice was pastries. I freaking love donuts and stuff. But when COVID came and Amy's Donuts delivered, and we ate Amy's Donuts at home, and oh my god, I have not had a donut since, nor will I. And I think that's what it is. I just thought it was cool they delivered, and we
Yeah.
didn't have to go drive the whole, what, 3 miles or 4, whatever it is.
The reason we make the decisions we
We make
do.
Once again, that's that mental piece. The mental piece and the physical piece were not in alignment. And had I just sat there and said, "Remember what this feels like. Are you willing? Is this a good trade-off?" It seems like a good idea at the time, and then the trade-off is not worth it.
Yeah, the suffering.
And that's the other thing, I was talking about earlier is that when we do that with our brain, and if you're trying to lose weight or something, you say, "Okay, fine, I'm not gonna drink any soda." The brain goes, "Hmm, you think? Oh, well, I'm gonna show you. Not only did you used to drink one, I'm gonna drink 2." Okay?
Mhm.
The reason why is because I tell people when you start saying, "I'm gonna stop this," or "I'm gonna give this up," or blah, 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 the brain goes into two-year-old mode and digs their little heels in it. No, it's because you're not doing a gradual thing. The brain doesn't know the why.
Mhm.
Why am I doing this? You're just sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this," but it doesn't understand the why. It doesn't understand the passion, and it doesn't understand the purpose.
And that's coming from a perspective of fighting the old.
Very good.
And the way forward is to create the new. And then by doing that, you're introducing new things to your diet that you maybe, didn't even consider before. You see that there are other alternatives so that you're not feeling deprived.
And I think that's the important thing. When we go into that place of deprivation, our brain goes into panic almost. And we have to, once again, have what the body's doing and the brain doing more in alignment with each other in order to make those changes and for them to be more sustainable.
Right.
And to show yourself a little bit of grace and understand that in anything that we're doing, we're going to fall off or backslide, whatever term you want to do. But you don't sit there and give up. You say, okay, well, you know what? That was this. And the next moment, I'm going to get back to this. But showing ourselves a little bit of grace in that. And I think that sometimes people go to this place of, I'm a failure, which anybody knows, I don't use that term. We are in practice. So if I ate the cookies, I don't sit there and say, oh my God, I'm a failure. I failed at this. What I say is, wow, that was maybe not the best choice.
Yep. It's all choices.
It
And just
was wonderful. I don't have guilt associated with it.
Mhm.
It was wonderful. I'm grateful for it, but I also do not care for the consequence of that choice.
Yeah. And that's what we always have to remember is that it's not good or bad. It's just choices. And there are consequences to go with those choices.
Exactly. And this is why I don't like the term failure. Failure means end. So if I try something and I don't like it and I move on to something else, somebody else might perceive that as failure. Well, you didn't give that enough try. It doesn't resonate with me. Why am I going to go keep doing shit that doesn't matter to me
Mhm.
because somebody else thinks it should?
Right.
No. If I try it, it doesn't resonate, I move on. I didn't fail at it. I practiced at it as much. Or if I do something and I practice, it doesn't fit or whatever, I didn't fail at it. It meant I did my best and now it's time to move on.
Mhm.
But as soon as we use that term failure, it creates a mental image. And then that mental image gets stuck in the subconscious. So then when you go to make changes later, it goes back to that thing of, oh, remember you tried this one thing that time and you failed. So therefore you're a failure. That's why that is not a good term to use.
Yeah, it really shuts down things in the mind and prevents you, I think, from continuing on. You can use those things as their temporary setbacks and feedback. Okay, well, this didn't work. You can look at something else, but it doesn't mean that it's the end.
Exactly. But people say, oh, I failed at my New Year's resolution. So guess what? Every year you go to try what you term as a New Year's resolution, that feeling is already in there. And the message is, you're going to fail.
And what was the end date on that? I mean, you really didn't have an end date. So why, that's just, I don't know if you chalk that up in your mind to just giving up or you know what I mean?
And the other thing is whenever you're on these journeys, you have to find the thing that really resonates with you.
Yeah.
My journey is different than your journey. We can share some of those experiences. We can help each other out. But each one of us has to have that individual thing of what is it that really is my driving force? What is it that I can do in those baby steps to help bring me to whatever I need?
Mhm. And if we are present in this moment, that's when, you can have that's the only time that you can affect, is this moment right here. So these choices that I'm making in this moment.
And I think that's really a good point, and I think that so many times people are looking at the end result. It is amazing if we stop and be present in the process,
Yeah, it's all about the journey.
but we are so conditioned to look at the end result, and then sometimes we get to the end result and it doesn't have the feeling we want. Well, yeah, because you never enjoyed the process.
Mhm.
You made it more stressful than it had to be, or I gotta do this perfection, or I gotta whatever's going on in the mind, and it keeps away from that process. And, when we're talking about the body and when we're talking about these conditions that we have, whether they're autoimmune or whatever they are, we inadvertently contribute to the symptomology in our mind through our brain because we focus on it. We create a thought or a feeling around it, which then perpetuates the symptomology. And then we wonder, well, why am I feeling this way? But if we be mindful and be present and we notice when that's happening, that I'm having this emotional response to something and I can change that emotional response, I can often change the physiological symptom.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that, and for some, we may not be able to take it away, but we can minimize it to a place where they're like, it's not affecting my quality of life. I can still move forward. And I think those are the things we're talking about is that forward motion and that alignment between what I am thinking and feeling and what is going on with me physiologically.
Mhm. It's interesting because there's many studies out there that have shown that when they tell certain patients about trying new medications or those kinds of things, when they talk about the symptomology and things that side effects that can happen from this, how many of them will experience that? And then the ones that have not been told those things don't. So you just have to understand the
Mm,
the power of the mind too.
the planting of a seed
Yeah.
is really huge. And that's a really good point because then what happens is it's kind of like if, you go to the doctor and something's wrong with you and they say, oh, it's going to take you 6 months to heal. Then you sit there and put in your calendar, oh, 6 months to heal, even though you may be feeling better at 3 months, but no, it's got to be 6 months. These are the things that we're talking about when you're having this relationship with your body goes, oh, you know what? Dang, I feel so much better. We hear that all the time. Oh, you'll never walk again. But the brain of that person says, yeah, I can do this. And so they don't listen. It's like, no, I have my own plan. I'm going to do this. Or, you have this illness and you'll always have this illness, and their brain works to change it. They're healing themselves to that mind body relationship.
Exactly. I think a really good book on that topic as well is that You Are the Placebo, Joe Dispenza, and he describes a really bad accident that he was in and how he chose to deal with that and all the things that the doctors were telling him and what he went through to heal his body.
Because remember, and no disrespect to the medical profession, but we act like it's a blanket statement for everybody,
Right.
and it's not. When we are looking at these numbers and all of this stuff, this is just an average. So this means that if you're looking at a bell curve, people in this center piece, this is how they react and respond to this.
Mhm.
But you still have all this out here, and you don't know if you're the ones out here. And how much of the ones out here is it because of the mind body connection that they have?
Mhm. And really all we are talking about in this too is the power of suggestion and how much the mind can play a role in that. Not to say that people shouldn't have the surgery or shouldn't take the medicine or
Oh,
any of
absolutely
those
not.
kinds
That
of
might be part
things.
of your journey
It
to
could
the
be.
end.
Yeah.
Even when clients are on medications and stuff in mental health, I say a medication is something that is put there for you to help you to slow down stuff in order for you to learn the skills and to do stuff.
Mhm.
A lot of my clients don't want to be on medication. I said, well, then what we have to do is we have to get your mind and body in alliance so that you can be successful. And
Right.
I have a few clients who have come off their meds and are doing wonderfully with it. But we had to work on what was the message my mind was giving the body and what was the message the body was giving the mind.
Yeah.
And then once they were able to make that connection, they've been very successful off medications. That's not to say I have some that are still on medications. Neither one is right or wrong. This is
Right.
not a right or wrong. This is finding out what is effective for each person.
Right.
What is your relationship between your mind? How much are you paying attention to your body? And what are those messages that it's sending? And then how is the mind able to change the thought process in order to perhaps assist in the outcome?
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
because a lot of times, like I say, there's a lot of things suggested along with these things. And then I think a lot of times, just inadvertently, we fall into those patterns, the narrative that has been told to us.
well, and another place we see that is in genetics. People will say, oh, well, my parents had this, so now I'm going to have this and stuff like that. And what are we finding out about genetics?
It's not the death sentence a lot of times that people think.
No, we
Yeah.
now know what we eat, what we think, what we do impacts
Yeah.
how we live and survive.
Right.
I mean, you think about it. Say somebody who smokes cigarettes grows up smoking cigarettes, blah, 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 and then they make that decision, I'm going to quit, and then they quit. We now know that adds on life to them, or drinking, or overeating, all of those things.
Mhm.
So we know that we have more of an impact on our physiological piece as well as our mental piece if we learn to be present and to pay attention.
Mhm.
Our body is always giving us messages.
Yeah.
Our mind is always giving us messages.
Yeah, and just being aware of that power, because I think that a lot of times people think that some of these things are just inevitable. And
Mhm.
in so thinking, there you are.
We fall into, and oftentimes, even with my clients, they're always talking, oh, well, I'm bipolar or I'm this. I'm They're like, no, that is just a small piece. But if that becomes your focus, then your body actually sends messages as well in order for you to sustain those.
Yes.
So it's no, don't become the label. We have the diagnosis and we have those to have a greater understanding. So once again, you could go to one doctor and you have the start of hypertension and they say, okay, well, let's put you on this medication in order to help with that. You go to another doctor and they say, you have the start of hypertension, but I think if you go and do 30 minutes of cardio 3 times a week, let's see if in 6 months, if that helps to bring it down. And then you do that, your hypertension goes away, just 2 different approaches, but one in doing the 30-minute workout, you're an active participant in
Yes.
your recovery and in the state sustainability of that. The only active participation you have in taking the pill is taking the pill. Now, if the thing is here, we're gonna give you this pill, and I also want you to do 30 minutes of cardio or whatever. Diabetics, when people are diagnosed with diabetes, you go to nutritional classes to see, how do I change what I am doing?
Right.
And a lot of times now, look at the big thing, they put out these medications because they realized that if people were overweight, they had higher risk of diabetes. Well, you have higher risk of hypertension, a whole bunch of other things. So when now they put out these medications in order for weight loss, and you have the weight loss, and some of these things go away. I
Mhm.
mean, we're seeing this, but one is doing it externally and one's doing it internally. Neither one is, it's not a right or wrong. It's not a bash on this or a bash on that. It is simply, you have to become more reliant on you and what's going on internally with you, with that thought process, with your physiology and physiology to your thought.
Yeah, and I think that the main thing about that is that you're in those situations, if you can be proactive. A lot of times you could say that medication is a reactive thing that has to happen to bring those numbers back down or that. But if you have it within your power to be proactive and prevent some of that from happening, I mean, how much more empowering is that? And just that is about the mindset.
Let's look at genetics again. If you know you have a genetic thing, then you can look and say, okay, well, what are some of the things I can do to be proactive and preventative in those things?
Yeah.
But once again, where there is a disconnect, and not all doc, and once again, this is not a blanket statement. it is kind of the medical model, if we look at it that way. And so it's one of those things of how do we take some control back?
Mhm.
How do we once again become more proactive in our lives?
Right.
It was interesting. We were watching a interview with Jack Osborne and he was talking about addiction and he said something really interesting. He goes, even though it's the addiction, each one has their own journey and what works for one does not always work for the other. And he's learning that there's gray in this.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing. We have to learn there are gray in these things because once again, some people go to AA and does absolutely nothing for them.
Yeah.
Some people go and it's a lifesaver.
Right.
It's what resonates. It's what we are able to invest in and how that investment pays off for us.
Exactly.
And it's in everything we do, not just health. We have people who are working in business and stuff like that or at jobs and they're feeling burnout, they're feeling all this and that. Well, the reason is because we're not paying attention fast enough. I learned that, and if I have to have time off, I'll just go tell you, I need time off. I didn't do that, and that's why I got the meningitis. That was stress induced, and I was at such a heightened level of stress with your dad being ill and, going into hospice and all that. And then, of course, working my full-time job where I'm working with people on all of their stuff. And, then you have to look at the organization and all the stuff that's going on in there. So you're having these kind of pressures coming from everywhere.
Right.
And I wasn't listening to my body. I wasn't paying attention to that stress level.
Mhm.
Now I'm at that place of if I need a day off, I take a day off.
Yeah. And it's easy to be distracted by other things. You have care and concern for other people, and it makes sense. But really being in tune with yourself is a way to be able to be there for those people. We have to accept all sides of ourselves, and sometimes we do need a break,
Mhm.
and that's okay.
I don't know, but sometimes I tell her, "I think I want the day off," and you know what she tells me? "What did you tell me last week?" "You already had a week off. What more do you need?"
Well,
She controls my schedule. No, but it's true, being aware of that, and in order to learn that, you have to learn to slow things down. That's why meditation and mindfulness are so important. If you're really on that journey and you want to be healthier, the Bugatti body, then you're not gonna sit there and when you're eating, it's even when you do your meal prep, and I meal prep for me is very mindful. I love the combination, the colors, everything. So when I'm meal prepping, I'm very mindful of that. What does this do? What is the nutritional value? My God, look at the presentation. That's a big thing to me. All of that, that whole
plating is important.
I want it to be appealing. But not only that, but then when you go to eat and if you're in a restaurant and you watch people eat, oftentimes
Just throwing it
and it could
in.
be,
Yeah, watching, something on their phone.
okay, they've piled on the food and they don't know when they're full or whatever because it's just this we're doing these automatic responses.
Oh, yeah, one
And
of
Wall-E,
oh, Wally, yeah, Disney.
Disney's Wall-E, if you have not watched it, you gotta watch it because it becomes that everything is given to them. Oh, it's such a great thing to look at and to watch because it is about what happens in this evolution if everything is provided for us.
Mhm.
But when you're eating, if your goal is, I want to lose weight, we know that the higher percentage is what you eat, not your workout. And it's harder to change what you eat than almost to get into a workout. Once again, you've got to understand that mind body relationship.
Mhm.
Okay. If I'm eating foods that are depleting me, I don't have the thing to go work out. But my body may be saying, "Give me, give me, give me those carbs and stuff," because it gets that real burst of energy and then it's gone. Whereas it needs that sustainability if you're gonna do workouts and stuff like that, the proteins, which is long term,
Mhm.
you know? Once again, your body's giving you those messages based on past behavior.
Right, and that's just even talking about the fit having the giving your body the fuel it needs for the energy for workout, but also think about the brain power. I mean, there are certain snacks that they, say and suggest for, if you're going to test or you're doing these kinds of things. the fuel that you put in, the things you nourish yourself with, and how that impacts the mind too.
I always tell people if your kids are gonna be having a test, don't give them a bowl of cereal, give them something with protein
Mhm.
because our brain uses protein. It doesn't use carbs the same way. It uses protein. It's a building block kind of thing. So you're exactly paying attention to the body. The
Yes.
brain, it will crave certain things, but it's the body telling the brain, I'm craving this. What do we need to do to fulfill it?
Yes, there's certain nutrients that it needs that, if we do that, how much better we will perform.
100%. And, once again, even when, we're doing that thing of eating mindfully is a huge thing. So when you eat, it's like you take a bite and you actually chew it and you think of the flavors.
Mhm.
You can even go into thinking of the nutritional value,
And
you
I
know?
think a lot of times that people don't do that because so much of the time everybody's in a hurry, so they're just throwing their food down in 20 minutes and having to get on to the next thing. And I think that anytime that we can minimize that kind of behavior is gonna help us in the long run more than we even know.
And I think we do that. Once again, there's that mind piece that says, "Oh my god, I only have 20 minutes."
Mhm.
We're only mindful in this second, this moment.
Right,
So
you
what
only have
difference
this
does it make?
moment. Yep.
So having the awareness to all of those things, I think is so important. And I think understanding that we have to start putting ourselves first.
Mhm.
We have to put ourselves first. We have to look at what motivates me, what drives me, what makes me happy. If I can do those things, the other things start to fall into place.
Yeah.
My body's going to start to be in alignment with my mind, and my mind in alignment with my body.
Yes, pay attention to what we feed our mind and our body because it works together.
I had this conversation with a client. When you're having that feeling, I said, if you sit with it for a minute, you don't sit there and try to figure it out. Well, it's not this, it's not this, it's not. Now you wasted 20 minutes what it's not. Sometimes you just simply say, what could this be? Why am I having this feeling? And sometimes then the answer comes to you because you're not trying to rationalize, or you're actually listening to your body because your body's giving you the reaction or the response.
Right. Sometimes when you're just trying too hard, that's when you're getting in your own way.
And like I tell people, trying is the hamster on the wheel. Trying is not an action.
No, I feel like it's a way of giving yourself permission to not succeed.
Absolutely. Well, I'm trying my hardest. Well, honey, I tell I always love that. But did you do your best? I always found that fascinating with kids. If I asked a child, did you do your best instantaneously? The answer is either yes or no. There's no thought to it.
Yeah.
Now, if I said, were you trying really hard? Yeah, I was trying really hard. But did you do your best? It's like they stop. It's like their little brains know the difference between this. It's amazing. But if you use that same thing, am I doing my best? And if the answer is an immediate yes, then be proud of yourself and know that you are doing your best.
Yeah.
That is all you can do. Once again, trying is not an action. And saying, I'm trying, well, that means absolutely nothing.
Yep.
You're the hamster on the wheel going round and round and round, and nothing has changed.
Mhm.
And so we have to be aware of the words that we say to ourselves. We got to be aware of the words that we hear others say and how not to incorporate that in.
Yes.
In an awareness, and also the biggest thing though is showing ourselves a little bit of grace and understanding that we're going to have those moments. We're going to have stuff happen in our life, and when it happens in our life, to give ourselves a chance to adjust to it. If you're diagnosed with something, or you lose a job, or you have a loss, or it can be anything, those things are going to impact us. And it's not saying that we're not going to have a feeling or a response to that. It's saying show yourself a little bit of grace, be present with that feeling, and then you get to move and build from it,
Right.
you
What
know.
can you learn from those things to propel you forward?
And it is a new year. And I a lot of people have talked with me, we always have uncertainties and about everything. We have stuff going on in the world and we get it. And I always tell people you can sit there and worry about that. And then when you do that, you're starting to create problems for yourself physiologically. And the world and the things happening don't know you, nor does it care.
Nor will it change just because
You worried
you're
about
worried
it.
about it.
Exactly. So even being aware of that, about how much we allow the external things that are going on to do this. So be be aware of that. Be present in those things and understand if it's starting to create something physiologically with you, and you'll feel it. You can feel the tightness and things like that. So that's part of the thing when we are stressed, what happens is we tend to tighten up and we don't know we're tightened up. And the reason we don't know we're tightened up is because that becomes our stance after a while.
Mhm.
We stay in a place of tight, then we don't understand why, "Oh my god, this hurts, that hurts," and it's because it's being created in here about our worry or stress about some situation that is outside of our control.
Exactly.
And I think the biggest thing even in that is when you sit down and you ask yourself, "Is this something I control or not?" Most of the time, the answer is no.
Mhm.
Nothing external to us do we really control in that way. Then we know, "Oh, okay, I can walk away from this." And then when you do that, you can almost start feeling that your body go, "Woo."
Mhm.
It's amazing.
I had just recently posted a meme on Two Girls in a Pod Life's Journey, and it says in there, if it's not something that I can control, it doesn't deserve space in my mind. And that I feel like is so powerful.
Because guess what, people? A majority of the crap in our mind is the stuff we don't control,
Yeah.
and it is the stuff that is making us ill. It is trying to control these things, people, situations, you name it, takes up so much space. And when it takes up that space, it is not allowing space for growth, for the relationship between the mind and the body.
Mhm.
We, each individual, is a gift to this world. And if we're a gift and we've been given the gift of life, then we should start acting like it
Mhm.
in the choices that we make, in paying attention, taking that time every day. And I tell people, it doesn't have to be an hour. You could do it in 5 minutes. Just sit down, reflect,
Yeah.
be present with yourself. If there's stuff going on, what is it? Give it its moment and then let it go and move on.
Yeah.
We hold on to crap and we often do not know when it arises because that subconscious holds on to everything.
Mhm.
And as I told you a few weeks ago, you said something and it wasn't even important, but for some reason I had a physiological reaction to it and I was not happy about it. And I became reactive. The good thing is that I had to go jump on to work right away, so I only have a short time in between clients. So I jump back on work and I still feel it. And, my client had to get up and go to the bathroom, so it gave me that and so this is what I mean, it's not a long period of time. I sat with it and I was there like, "Where did that come from? It's out of context. What is this about?" It came to me that quickly. It was something not I didn't even think was relevant, but it created that physiological response in me. So I physically felt something, but also emotionally, I was feeling something. Soon as I got off, finished the appointment, got off, and I talked with you, and I said, "Oh my god, that was the weirdest thing." It came to me, it was this, but as soon as I acknowledged it, I gave it its space, and I understood it, I let it go.
Yeah. You could set it free.
And somebody asked me, "Well, what was it?" I don't know, it no longer exists in me. That's when you know you have let something go. I cannot think of I cannot conjure I can't do it because even on that subconscious level, I've let it go, and it only took a couple of minutes.
Mhm.
So people, I think, have this idea too, once again, this mental piece, that it takes a long time to do this. No, what it does is it takes a few minutes of being present with yourself in order to build that relationship between the mind and the body and the mind.
Yeah, I think having that awareness, it's so important because your inner peace is more value than anything that you could attain extrinsically.
And that inner peace contributes to our healthy body.
Yes.
It is such an amazing, beautiful relationship that we are not paying enough attention to. So hopefully, if you take anything from this, it's to be mindful, to be
Yes.
present, use meditation, slow things down, show yourself a little bit of grace, do things in baby steps. Nothing has to be created tomorrow or today.
Mhm.
We have this moment. Live this moment.
And what can we do in this moment to align with the goals that we have?
Absolutely. Know your whys. Know your passion and your purpose in doing the things that you do. And they have to be yours. They cannot be somebody else's. We can no more change anybody else than they can change us.
Right.
And when people try to change you, you just get pissed off.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. So have that awareness. Take care of you first. Develop that relationship between the mind and the body. It is the greatest relationship you will ever have internally. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And as always, we hope that everybody has a happy new year. And you can always find us on
twogirlsinapod.com. You can subscribe, like, comment. If you subscribe, you will receive an email whenever we have a new episode on. You can also find us on social media, Instagram and Facebook, Two Girls in a Pod Life's Journey. And then also we have Adventures of Two Girls in a Pod Life's Journey on YouTube. Got a couple new things on there. So go and check it out, subscribe. We appreciate it.
we decided to take the time to go up to Cripple Creek and do the ice castles, and it was a really great experience, and we wanted to share that. So just taking time, be out in nature, go around, look around, breathe that fresh air that we have in Colorado, and those things feed the soul as well and feed the mind and the body. And as always, we appreciate you guys. And also, don't forget that we have Grateful Beginnings coloring books on Amazon. You can find it under Grateful Beginnings or under Sharon Abeda and Christy Banta.
Yeah.
We appreciate you, very grateful, and we hope that you guys have a really great week. And we will be back next week. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.